go from there. Okay. Well, hello once again to Pastor Positive Mental Health, our Positive Pastor Pod, however you see it. I'm Kirk. It's good to be with you once again. Please like, share, and subscribe. I have a guest that I just met about 3 weeks ago at Concordia, Wisconsin, at a Call to Lead event, and we're a little similar. And so, but he's in El Cajon, California. Isn't that still the birthplace or the base of Taylor guitars, I think? And
Yeah, it is.
yeah, so me being a Taylor guitar player, well, I don't have that Taylor anymore. But anyway, just so El Cajon's great. And so I have with me James Huenink, and he is the pastor at First Evangelical Lutheran Church in El Cajon, California. And looking forward to just getting to know you. And I know that there's a lot that you could probably share that will be benefit to others. So let's dive right in with the first question. What led you to become a pastor?
Well, like many pastors, I started exploring the idea of being a pastor when my pastor said, "Hey, you'd be a good pastor."
Nice.
This was must have been like 13 or 14, and it was confirmation age. So by the time I entered high school, that's what I wanted to do. I had never really thought about it before that. In fact, I had kind of no idea what I wanted to do. And he
Mhm.
said, "You'd be good at this." And I went, "Yeah, I would."
Oh, nice,
And
nice.
that's about the story.
Yeah, you know what's great about that, James, is that when interviewing other pastors and talking to other church leaders, DCEs or whatnot, deaconesses, that's often the case. Someone says, I think you might want to consider this, and I think it's very important for pastors and for other church leaders to encourage that in young people. And so I just love that story. I love that consistency, and especially when it comes from someone who is in the church and they have maybe some authority and they see that in you, and you might not see it, but planting that seed as the Holy Spirit works. So that's great. So kind of tell me about your church, your current role, what's going on there?
So I am the sole pastor of First Lutheran Church in El Cajon. We are like many kind of older suburbs. We're in a declining congregation that's aging.
Mhm.
One of our big challenges is that our area is one of the highest populations of Chaldean Catholics in the
Wow.
country. And so that's Iraqi Catholics
Mm.
who've been immigrating to the United States since the first Gulf War. It was the big uh, beginning of the boom, and
Mm.
then through all the other challenges that have been happening in Iraq since then, they've been coming over in waves as those challenges have arisen. Which means that my church, unlike many places, is in the center of Christendom because everybody around us is Catholic.
Hmm.
But it also means that the Lutherans have been moving out and being replaced by people who are very dedicated to their congregation. And so while that's good for the body of Christ, it's challenging for our organization as the churches around us are growing because they're Catholic, Syrian, Chaldean Catholic churches, but our Lutheran church is having a harder and harder time connecting with our neighbors because they speak a different language.
Wow.
And honestly, we don't want them. We want them to go to their church. We want them to be faithful in their
Mm.
congregation. Our goal is not to steal people from the Catholic Church, but to find new people to bring to Christ.
Mm.
And so we're not even trying to target faithful Catholics because that's just sheep stealing. What
Yeah.
we want to do is find people in our neighborhood who don't have a church, who don't know who Jesus is, and bring them to the gospel.
Mm.
Um, so we also have a number of Afghan immigrants in the area, which poses a similar challenge,
Mhm.
but with Islam. And so we're trying to figure out how to make that connection.
Mhm.
Um, it's just such a challenging culture to cross that it's been very difficult, and others are finding it difficult as well. Um, yeah.
So you served in other churches, right? So just kind of give us a brief history of how you got to this church.
So my pastoral career, I started out in Chicago at St. James in Lincoln Park. This is most people, I think, if you haven't been to Chicago, imagine the city of Chicago as like a war zone. Like you go out your door and you nom roll to your car and you hope that the windows are still there. That's not at all what Chicago is like.
Yeah, yeah.
The neighborhood that I was in, the across the street from the church, there was a hole in the ground that was $1.5 million. It was like 20 feet by 100 feet. Um, and down the street from us, someone had bought a house that was $3.5 million. And so, and these are not like houses with acreage. This is a single Chicago lot. So that part of the neighborhood and that area of Chicago was quite wealthy, really nice, and I loved being there and being in the city. So I served there for about 4.5 years, mostly as a youth pastor, and I taught in the parochial school, taught religion, and did a couple of other things in that circumstance, and fell in love with urban living and living in spaces that were active and different, and got used to doing ministry in a place where most people aren't Christians. Which meant coming to El Cajon was a big challenge because all of a sudden I'm in the middle of an area where everybody says they're a Christian. So after that, I went to Concordia Lutheran Church in Berwyn, which is a suburb of Chicago. That was a what I call an inner ring suburb. So Chicago has suburbs that grew. The first wave of the suburbs were kind of settled in the 50s, in the post-war era. They built a whole bunch of houses for the GIs. And so that is Berwyn. It was kind of established in that early wave of outmigration from Chicago after Chicago stopped gobbling up the suburbs. And now everybody is moving from areas like that into the far suburbs. So the outmigration continues. And Berwyn was a heavily Hispanic area. I my congregation was surprised when I told them that there were more Mexicans in my Chicago neighborhood than there are in El Cajon, and that I could get better tacos there too. And so that was another interesting place to be, a congregation that had grown in the 90s when the Lutheran immigration wave from the city center made it out to the inner ring suburbs, and then started to shrink when those families began moving to the outer ring suburbs. And so it was a challenge to say, well, what do we do now that we're no longer the Czech and Bohemian multi-generational city? Everybody's leaving. How do we reach our neighbors? It was actually a very similar situation to what my current congregation is dealing with. People have been leaving our area for a long time. We're not replacing them with new members. How do we connect with neighbors who are different from us and try to build those connections for the gospel?
Yeah, so I mean, a common theme that I'm hearing, and this is not specific to you, is that ministry can be challenging, and especially when you have the heart of the Great Commission, right? Go and make disciples of all nations, and you're around all nations, in these contexts that you've been in, and sometimes that's really overwhelming and a challenge to do that. But yet, especially as pastors, that's our desire, and that's what we want to equip our church members to do, is to go and in their context, they're gonna reach people that I'm never gonna have contact with, and how do I share the love of Christ with them? So over your vocation in pastoral ministry,
if you don't mind, before you dive into this next question,
Sure,
I want to point out the flip side of what you just said.
Sure.
When we live in areas like this, like El Cajon or Chicago, or places where the demographics are changing, you don't actually have to go to meet all nations. All nations are coming to us.
Right.
And that is such an amazing opportunity. Like you can be like, oh, our neighborhood is changing and it's so hard. But really, Like, you don't need to send missionaries because they're coming to you.
Yeah.
They are landing in our neighborhoods. They're coming from Haiti, from Africa, from
Mm,
Afghanistan, and
mm,
all of these people, they need the gospel. And it's such a great opportunity because we don't need to ship someone far away to
mm.
give them the gospel. Like,
Yeah.
the nations are coming to us. How great is that?
Yeah. What a great perspective. And so I'm going to steal that. So I appreciate that. So so over your time as a pastor, how have you relied on church members?
Well, church doesn't happen without church members. It is there are so many things from the organizational leadership to the logistics to all of that nothing could really get done if the pastor was just trying to run everything. And the you know um, lots of people really like to focus on the outreach programs and all the kind of the big name things, but uh, a lot of church is just like, who's going to be here on Sunday to unlock the doors?
Yeah.
Who's going to be setting up Holy Communion? We need people to hand out bulletins.
Hmm.
Someone's got to sweep the floor. And these these jobs are often unsung, but they're some of the most important. Um, and also, I think the book of Acts really shows us how important it is that the gospel goes out before the apostles do. Like when the church in Jerusalem is being persecuted, and then all these churches just pop up all over the place. It's
Hmm.
like they go to Samaria and the gospel's already been there. They go to Antioch and the gospel's already there.
Mm.
How'd that happen? They get to Rome and they're like, oh look, a church. And the uh, the beauty of just like faithful Christians being God's people in the place. It's the gospel expands almost by accident. Like, it's not accident for God, but like none of
Right.
us would plan that.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's the joy and beauty of having a good and active membership is
Hmm.
that the gospel, if I'm the only one sharing the gospel, it's kind of sitting in my house in my office more often than not.
Hmm.
As much as I go out, like I can't be spending that terribly amount of time just like walking the streets.
Right.
But if you've got 100 people who spend 1 hour a week, like inviting someone or sharing the gospel or praying with someone, that's 100 hours every week of
Mm.
of gospel ministry with almost no effort.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's good. And I think that's an important thing to note. You have the title of sole pastor. That doesn't mean that you're solely responsible for everything that happens in the church. And I think often, especially in our current state of Christianity, it's easier sometimes for people to say, "Well, that somebody else will do it." And having church members that go, "No, this is my church. I need to do my job." Whether it be handing out bulletins or sweeping a floor, unlocking the door, that is just has such great value as many other things in the church. And so and so that's good that you call that out. And so, can you
See,
tell me a moment? And obviously, we don't want to. I don't want to make you cry or anything on the podcast, but a time where specifically you can tell me you felt built up in ministry.
so there's so many times. One of the great things that's been happening lately is I started a YouTube channel about a year ago, and I've been working on it. And I bet about half a dozen times over the last year, I've had either phone conversations or comment conversations where someone says, hey, I've been watching your videos and I decided to join a church.
Mm.
Or, hey, I've been watching your videos and there's an LCMS church down the corner. I want to become a member. And I just got one of those not too long ago
Wow.
from someone online. And they gave me the nicest compliments as part of it. And I'll probably be riding high on that for about a week now.
Yeah.
Um, hopefully, that person out there is watching it because it really made my day.
Yeah. No, for sure. Okay, what's the
um,
YouTube channel? Come on, we got
uh,
to
well,
promote it.
it's real easy. First Lutheran Church of El Cajon,
Okay.
LCMS.
All right. First Lutheran Church of El Cajon, LCMS. Okay. Everyone that hears this needs to go look it up and subscribe right now. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, we put out my sermon every Monday.
yeah.
mostly every Monday, and we try to do an episode every Wednesday. And then lately, I've been putting up AI Lutheran hymns every Friday, and they're really
Okay.
fun.
All
I'm
right.
having fun with it. I don't care if everybody out there doesn't like them. I love them.
Oh, that's cool. I'll have to check that out. Always looking for other resources that I can give to people. So over the years, what have you found to be the most challenging aspect of ministry?
Um, so I think one of the big challenges, and one that I really struggle with, is uh, the the church is often seen as a like a shop, like a business,
Mm,
and our relationships in the congregation like their clients. Um, and sometimes it's even so transactional that it's less like clients and more like the cashier at Target.
yeah, yeah.
And if we don't offer the spiritual services that they want, they say, well, I'll just go to the Target down the street.
Mm,
Um, and when you are like in someone's hospital room and you're at their relative's deathbed, or you're praying for them, and I don't think congregation members actually understand how much their pastors love them,
mm,
and how this is not a like a client relationship like you
mm.
would have at work, where you're just like, hey, nice to see you, and you don't think about them again. Um, like being treated like you're a cashier at Target is really painful. Um, and for me, I think the biggest challenge is that often the people who you think care about you the most and love you the most are also the ones who you say something strange, and then they will write an anonymous letter or try to blow up the church. And you're like, whoa, wait a second. I thought you were.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're just like, you know what? We're going to write a bad Yelp review about you and go to the next restaurant.
Wow.
Um, and that's probably the hardest thing.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that I talk about often is unrealistic expectations that people have, and they don't realize that they're an expectation until the pastor doesn't meet them in that expectation, and then it's emotionally charged, and they can't step back and go, was this reasonable? Was this reasonable that I should have this expectation? And then also, I always try to remind people, when I get installed as your pastor, one of the things you say is that you promise to make the best construction on everything. And often that gets missed, is what you're saying. That's not happening. And another challenge I think you're sharing is what is called unilateral decision making. It's like you're breaking up this relationship without considering input from the other party, basically, if we want to look at it that way. And there is a consumerism aspect that we struggle with for sure. And I like what you mentioned, and I hope church members who listen to this hear this, is that people don't understand how much we love our congregation. We don't just go in for the hours that we put in during the week and go home and not think about them. When someone's going through something, we're a constant prayer. When someone's on their deathbed, we're thinking about it. We're calling elders and other people to say, please pray for them. All these things, and we can't just set it aside. It's always with us, and I think people say that's an act of love. If a pastor can set that aside without any empathy or care, they don't love their congregation, and it's very rare to find a pastor that is that way. If they are that way, it's because they're in burnout. That's a whole different conversation. So you've been through these moments where you've gotten these letters, or people have misunderstood you, or they feel more transactional. Can you think of a specific time where that was happening, or one of those examples are happening, and a church member kind of actually helped you in that challenge?
So one of the things, my elders here are really great,
Good.
and they're very supportive. And we had some challenges that they really helped us work through. They kept cool heads. They were bridges between parties that were arguing, and it's been really good. I this is the sort of thing where on a public thing I can't give too many details,
Or no, right.
but the it's when you have good elders who are good and connected with the congregation and are willing to be open-minded and faithful, it's really a great thing.
Yeah, you feel supported, and I think that they get the mission of the church, and because sometimes we can get so caught up in that transaction, right? In that the customer is always right mentality, if we want to use church members as customers analogy, that we chase people a little bit, and that can be very unhelpful.
Hmm.
And then you're missing out on those who are there for the transformation, not for the transaction, right? They're actually there for, and so I think that it's great, and so I appreciate, and so kudos to your elders, that they support you and they love you well, and I wish I could hear that from all pastors,
Yeah.
I'm blessed that way too. In my current context, I just they're great, and it makes a difference for our if we're talking about mental health. We're supported so we can focus on what God has called us to do, to preach the word and rightly administer the sacraments, and we can do that well and faithfully, and not be distracted with the things that can rob the congregation from us doing our job well. So now, just on a side note, this isn't in the questions I sent you, but I was kind of studying a little bit on your church website, and what are you cooking these days?
You mean in my kitchen?
Well, yeah, because yeah, it looks like you enjoy to cook.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Oh,
Late I just am finishing up my latest batch of bread.
oh,
So I make bread pretty regularly, so I've been
mhm.
doing that. Um, I cook all sorts of stuff.
Yeah,
Pretty soon I'm making spaghetti and meatballs. I
nice.
love to cook. I do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that kind of is one of those things that just kind of gives you breath and gives
Well,
you a
the neat thing
pause?
about it is that it gives me the chance to start and end a project
Hmm.
in an afternoon, and I
Yeah.
can do something creative, interesting, and I begin the project and end the project and enjoy the rewards,
Yeah.
all in the same day.
Yeah. No,
And,
that's
and it can
good.
be difficult. So, actually, I just bought the ingredients to make dumplings, pot stickers. And so I'm going to, you grind up the cabbage and the ginger and the garlic and the pork and all of that, and then you make your shells. It takes a couple of hours, and
Mm.
it's just kind of nice. There are not a
Yeah.
lot of projects that start and end quickly in the church. In fact, most of our projects begin with a baptism and end with a funeral, and you get to see the start of the project, but not the end of the project, or the end of the project and not the start of the project.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it's that's rather long term, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. No, that's good. And the reason I asked you about that is one of the things that I encourage pastors a lot, and then church leaders to help their pastors with, is making sure that they have hobbies, things that they can just go and not just get caught up in that creative moment like you're saying, and some of it also is sustainability once they do reach that age, should they reach the age where they retire, and their identity and they have things to do is not wrapped up just in being a pastor. They can actually enjoy some things outside, and I've met too many pastors, and you probably have too, who the ministry is so consuming that they never take any time for themselves, no matter how little, and when they retire, they just don't know what to do. So they end up going back into the ministry, but yet they're tired. And so,
Yep.
that's just it's a bad cycle.
I
Uh,
also think every pastor should have a skill that they can monetize, that you should develop while you're being a pastor. I run a small photography business on the side,
yeah.
and you just never know when you're at a point where your congregation needs you to ramp up your skills and provide outside of the salary of the congregation.
Hmm.
I think there are a lot of places where the declining congregations, they still need a pastor, and you're going to go, you may get your salary cut, and you may need to have find a job. And the best way to do that is to develop a skill that you can do freelance that is flexible,
Mm-hmm.
running your own business, so you can run that around your pastoral schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, for me, it's a photography business where I do mostly sports action, and having a skill that you enjoy that allows you to find some fulfillment and serve the world, but also maybe if you need to ramp up sometime to cover your bills, is a really good thing to have for a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you may not be able to be a pastor to a people in a congregation that's shrinking, and they deserve a pastor too.
Mm. Good word. I hope people are listening to that. That's a good insight.
Especially if you're a new seminarian out there, find a skill.
We could talk a lot about that, but that's okay. No, no, that's great. Tell me how someone in the last couple of weeks in your church has made you smile.
Hmm. Um, well, we just had a retirement celebration for our music director, and it was neat to see so many people come together and just celebrate the work of our music director. She
Mhm.
was here for more than 30 years,
Wow.
and everybody loved her, and it was just wonderful to see so many people come together. And it
Mm.
was neat to be able to just sit in back and smile and watch the congregation do cool stuff,
Yeah.
honoring someone.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think it's important, and I know you probably do this naturally without thinking about it, but it's important for us to pause and think about, I like to do it on a weekly basis, sometimes a daily, if depends on how many people I'm interacting with, and go, okay, what brought me a little bit of joy from that church member today? Because I don't know how you are, but sometimes it's so easy to get caught up in the challenges or the problems or the next event. That we just need to pause and go, wait, there's some cool things happening here. And that's a great example of that. Look at just sitting back and watching the church cheer and celebrate another person is really cool. What is if you were to sum it up in a short statement or a few sentences, what's the overall desire for that you have for the people at your church?
So, I would love for my congregation, and we're on this path, uh, to be fully Lutheran in our receiving of God's grace, and so overjoyed by that that it spills out into the lives of others.
Hmm.
Um, one of the challenges, I think, is pairing good doctrine with joy. Um, and uh, I say this not because they are actually opposites; they're naturally joined together.
Mhm.
But sometimes the people who are most excited about doctrine are also some of the most like angry. Um, and we uh, uh, and so it seems almost as if there is a contrast between being loving and joyful and good doctrine. And that's always confused me. I look out in the world and that's kind of what people say,
Yeah.
but the our emphasis on the grace of Christ and the joy that we have in simply receiving is just so amazing.
Yeah.
And I cannot say how wonderful it is to be Lutheran. And I did not understand until I became a pastor how hard it is to be not Lutheran. As I interact with people who come in with strange ideas about the gospel and God's law and how to be a Christian, and I go, I just can't imagine living like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And um, just like there's just so much joy in
Yeah.
being a confessional Lutheran and really understanding God's grace in the way that we do it. Um,
Mhm.
and so many people want to have that law-built life that other Christians have, and I just don't get it.
Hmm.
But being able to express that with joy and just being like, how amazing is our God that he gives us grace in this way and we
Mhm.
don't have to do any work.
Yeah.
Um, and the ways that all plays itself out in our lives
Hmm.
is just so beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, and what I want for, I think, every Lutheran congregation, and myself in particular, is to have that joy of the gospel and that peace, and to be really excited to share that with their neighbors.
No, that's great. So I'm one who came from outside the Lutheran Church, and what you just described was actually what drew me to the Lutheran Church was the joy of pure doctrine, of that it really is all about what God has done on our behalf, and we are just ecstatic that we get to receive it, that he would condescend himself to gift us in such a great way. And to me, that is, if you don't have joy, I don't understand, because the pressure's never on us. It's all on God, and he's faithful. And so, for those of us like me who have been in that cycle of, I got to perform. I got to make sure I'm doing enough. I got to make sure I'm producing sanctification in my own life and all these things. And it was such a great relief to come to the pure doctrine. I came to it before I actually became a Lutheran, as I just was journeying through different pastoral ministry and studying God's word, and just going, man, why am I making it so hard? And I think that God's like, I want you guys to enjoy life. Remember, I said that that they would have it abundantly. Maybe that's I know that's we definitely are going to have that when we see him face to face. But I think we get to enjoy that right now. And so I think sharing that and getting past that hurdle, like you were saying, of people that think I have to earn something. And when you think you have to earn your salvation or your right standing with God, I find people to be extremely miserable and oppressed, and I feel for them greatly. But praise the Lord for the Holy Spirit who continues to guide people into the truth, and so we can rest in his work and watch God do those things. Well, James, I appreciate you so much. I look forward to getting to know you more. You weren't too contrarian, so that's all right. It's okay. Maybe another conversation we can bring that out in you. And so I just want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. If you guys like this episode, if you have any comments, please comment. Please like, share, subscribe. Positive Pastor Pod or Positive Pastor on YouTube. And look up First Lutheran Church, El Cajon, LCMS. You'll get to know James a little bit better, and I'm sure you'll find great joy in that. God bless you all. Thanks. Thanks, James.
Thank you.